that I think are important because, you know, unfortunately, people left. Hopefully they can catch it on TV. I want to start with educational quality. It's a shame. I think you may have missed our superintendent's presentation to this committee in December, but I think you would have found it quite helpful, Brian. Mr. Pendergrass came, and he noted a couple of things. The first thing is that our state reading and writing scores rank number 2 in the state by the state's tests and calculations. We don't rank as high in math. Mr. Pendergrass was quick to acknowledge that and identify it as something that needs improvement. He also fielded questions from us and stated an understanding that he needs to deliver a quality education not only to the top students but throughout the population at MENDHAM High. In short, when you look at the state studies, they show a slightly different picture than what you see in the Monmouth University study, which, as has been pointed out, does not take into account the IB program, nor does the U.S. News and World Report study take into account the IB program. So I would not be so naive as to say that when you have indicators like that, you shouldn't look and see if there's issues that need to be addressed. I don't think our superintendent would tell you otherwise. I think you did a nice job of outlining the process. I think you tend to skip to the vote too quickly, and I have a concern there. You put out 2 options. I don't want to belabor the one for the K through 12 for the MENDHAMs and Chesters. I think you yourself recognized how challenging a lift that would be. We voiced concerns about having our high school in a regional district. And as I've said to some people, it doesn't take a PhD in philosophy to recognize there's a flaw in the logic of taking our K through 8s and putting them in a regional district where we don't have control. So I'm very concerned about that option personally, and from a saleability standpoint, I think you had some reservations yourself. On the second option that has been proposed, that is the limited purpose 9 through 12 for the MENDHAMs and the Chesters. In that regard, there's been 3, I'm going to call them relatively recent cases that have addressed that issue. And I think it's important to keep this in mind. 2 of them, Great Meadows and Riverdale, went to the state, and as you said, the state has to approve a vote. In those 2 cases, the state refused to allow a vote. In the Riverdale case, the state and a panel, 3-judge panel of the appellate division agreed that what was going on was simply an end run around to a funding formula change. And there's a specific statute that provides for a funding formula change. The third case, I refer to it as Delsey, I can't remember the complete caption of it. It's a South Jersey case. The state board did allow a vote. However, that case was quite different than our case. In that case, there were 3 districts involved, and the proposal would reduce it to 1 district and a send and receive relationship. Essentially, a reduction in the number of districts, unlike our case. My point is that I think it's a very difficult path to get a vote on the limited purpose 9 through 12. So, I know that you would make the point that there's a probability analysis we should do, and you would say that the cost is indeed very small compared to the benefit that can be delivered. I probably differ a little bit in terms of what I think the costs are, picking up on comments made by Mrs. Thomas and Mr. Baum to some extent. $10,000 is not a lot of money. We could pass the hat. We could collect it. I say that a little bit glibly. My point is it's just not a lot of money. I concur. But there's an opportunity cost, as Mrs. Thomas was pointing out. We're saddled still in this town with a rather difficult budget situation. That situation has us making difficult choices about whether to give money to our emergency services and to our library. So it's not just the $10,000. There's an opportunity cost associated with it. There's also a cost in terms of time. We've spent now 2 years of very aggressive action, some might say attacks, trying to accomplish this goal. We haven't gotten there. And the effort predates the the last 2 years. It goes back probably 10 years and more to the last study that was done. The biggest concern, though, that I have is the destructive dialogue. I think that this is the one that concerns me the most, because instead of working to improve the quality of the school, we have a board that is locked in a battle, a school board. And it's become, despite the fact that there's a lot of intelligent people on that school board, a non-functioning board. Some folks want to split off from the districts. The others are in a hunkered down position, parrying the challenges that are made. And if we're really concerned about the education of our students, I think we need to couple the funding formula issue from the quality of education and focus and have our school board focus on delivering solutions to improving the quality, if that's our perceived concern. And in that regard, I just want to clear up a misconception, because I think I heard it creeping in. You suggest that there's a 5-4 majority in Washington Township, and that in fact is true. But the implication is that there's been a lot of 5-4 votes. In fact, if you look at the numbers dating back to 1999 through the end of the last school year, I don't have it updated for the 2012-2013 school year, there were approximately 600 decisions made per year by the school board. Roughly 7,800 decisions from 1999 to 2012. There have been two 5-4 votes out of those 7,800 votes. The board is not split 5-4. So I think we need to get the board working together to work on the educational quality, if that's our concern, and decouple it from funding. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A couple of observations that I have, Brian. I tend to share Rob's concern about the weight of the lift necessary to get through. The state is not our friend in this issue. And getting through county superintendents were a creation of the legislature. And they were basically designed to give the state more control over what was going on in school systems. So you are correct that that is nothing more than a precursor of what the Department of Education wants to do. But even if it gets past that vetting process, then it's got to go to the Department of Education to get through. We have an administration that has announced that merger is the solution to life, not separate units. So we're going a bit against a state policy and a concern in that regard. Can it be done? Perhaps. But I'm not sure it's the smooth road that has been presented here. Secondly, I believe that the support that has been expressed, as Sam says, it's easy to throw money at a situation and say, oh yeah, I've done it, I've put the money out there. That does not necessarily equate with full-throated support for what's going to happen, including agreeing on what's going to happen, how it's going to be organized, who's going to organize it, so that there's a meaningful chance of success. I dare say if there were a way to sit here and wave a wand and somehow fix this financial inequity, I don't believe anybody here would be opposed to doing so. It is not that simple. It's a very complex process. And the fact that it's so complex is indicated by the fact that so few communities have been able to carry this through successfully. I see two issues coming out of here. One is the fair allocation of costs. I'm in full agreement with you that what's happening now is not equitable. The question is, how do you get it fixed? How do you get it changed? And the second one is the school quality issue. That I'm not as clear on. I do, when you talk about objective measures, yeah, having someone outside the system doing the measuring, that's objective in the sense that it may not be rigged. On the other hand, it may not be done properly. I'm not entirely sure what the answer is. I do know this, that there are two separate and distinct interests here for the taxpayers. One is the subsidy issue, and the second one is if our schools are acknowledged as being some of the best in the state, every single homeowner and taxpayer in the regional school district stands to benefit, regardless of what town they live in, because that's one of the things that prospective homeowners look at when they're coming into communities. I'm sure it was the case with you. It was the case with me 26 years ago when I came in. So to the extent that there's a linkage, okay, I understand that. But to the extent that there may not be a linkage and that these things may actually operate somewhat independently of each other, I would like to explore seeing what we can do with our sister communities to encourage improvement of our school rankings and focus on that issue, because I think that's something that everyone probably might be able to agree on. The fair allocation of costs, I got to tell you, I've talked to the mayors of the Chesters, and I've talked to Neil in the borough, and when I called them, there is a real concern that going for a 4 towns win, 1 town lose proposition is not going to be well received at the state level. There is a reluctance on their part to go for that. And that is a real issue that needs to be worked out. I'm not sure, and I understand the subsidy. I mean, I'm a MENDHAM Township person. I would love to have my taxes cut. But by the same token, I also have to recognize that when you have that big a change, and as good as it would be for us, it would be absolutely horrible for Washington Township. The implications would be very, very serious for them. I don't think that's going to pass muster with the state without some real substantial trouble. And that's my honest opinion about this thing. I think we need to review this further. I also think it should be done in the context of our actual budget process, which is an ongoing thing right now. I mean, we're trying to develop a budget and we're trying to make it balanced for the current year, and we're short at the current time. So what I would like to do is I'd like to charge the Finance Committee. I don't think the dollars per se are a huge issue. But by the way, there's another issue I want to mention about the dollars. It's not $15,000. Because you can bet your bottom dollar that if we go this route, there will be litigation. There will be litigation. There's been litigation, I think, Rob, in just about every other case.
The only one I'm aware of that hasn't had litigation, or at least I haven't seen, is Del C, but that just means there's no reported decision so far. I can't.
And if that happens, I mean, I know from experience as an attorney, and a corporate attorney, half the time it's not the damage that ultimately comes to you, it's the cost getting there that is, frankly, can be very, very serious. So it's something I think we have to consider. My inclination is to ask the Finance Committee to take a look at it, see where it fits in the context of what's going on. But I also need a cold-eyed view of what our realistic prospects are of being able to carry this thing forward successfully. If we got to a vote, you may be right that we would be able to marshal the necessary support to carry it through. Litigation aside and all the other things aside. But to get to that step, we have to make it over some pretty big hurdles. And I'm not sure it's all that clear at this point. So that's my commentary on it.
May I address the...
You're going to have your chance. Let me just get through, if I may, the open items, and then we'll have the second hearing persons present, and I will invite you to approach the mic. Are we okay?
I think we should change.
Okay.